Hi, I'm Mayor Kim Driscoll, and pleased to be joined by Police Chief Paul Tucker.
Thank you.
Giving folks a little bit of an idea of what's happening. It's been a hectic day for us here in Salem, dealing with a few public safety issues, but overall, the month of October went well. November, thought we were sliding into home safe and sound until today with a hubbub of activity, all ending up pretty well so far. But maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that are happening in the PD.
Sure.
Namely, I wanted to touch base on Go Fast, Get Fined, our anti-speeding campaign. I know going out to neighborhood groups, you know it too, Chief, we hear from folks about the level of speeding, the level of cut-through, and just the impact it has on the quality of life. And we've done some new initiatives. Maybe you can talk a little bit about both of them.
Sure. Over the last year or so since I took over as chief, what I found is probably the #1 issue that residents come to speak to me about has to do with traffic and congestion, particularly speeding cars, loud motorcycles. So one of the things we've done is with your office and the police department is put together a campaign called Go Fast, Get Fined. And I think it's been off to a very successful start. We've had a number of different types of patrols. We've put out selective enforcement patrols where the officers that are already in cruisers go out to selected areas. We've compiled approximately 12 to 14 streets that we see as some of the chronic places for complaints. We've also been able to, through the Mass Highway Safety, get some grant money to put out some extra patrols as well. I can say that the amount of citations is up. We've also tried the education piece. It really is 3 E's. It's education, enforcement, and engineering. And what this campaign has done is really bring the 3 together. And I think we've been very successful. I'm very pleased so far.
Yeah, it's been great that we can actually involve the neighborhood associations and residents who care about this issue in the campaign by them posting a sign, talking within their neighborhood and within their neighbors. We know when we've done selective enforcement in the past, we're sometimes stopping the neighbor down the street
Yes.
and who either doesn't realize the impact it's having on the neighborhood, or we've all been in a hurry and just trying to get somewhere.
Yes.
And hopefully this is a good, solid reminder.
Yes, it's off to a great start. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the neighborhoods. I can tell you that the Mac Park neighborhood, the Common Association, their cooperation has been paramount. It's been fantastic. And the reception from the neighborhood groups couldn't be happier.
And I know we're hoping to be able to add to our regular traffic enforcement as we move forward, and that's really due to the civilian dispatch that we recently put in place. We've got 5 civilian dispatchers. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about what was happening before and what's happening new in that field.
Yes, up until approximately 2 months ago, we had police officers that worked as dispatchers inside the police station. We had 2 officers, and they would have the duties of answering the phone, the 911s, the dispatch, etc. One of the things that we know from studying and what other departments are doing is that we can bring civilians in and have just as high quality a product of service and get at least those 5 officers out on the street. We can't hire civilians to do police work, but we can do the inverse of it, and it's off to a great start. We have a very talented group of folks that we've hired to do the civilian dispatching, and as a result, one of the great benefits that's happened is we've gotten 5 extra officers on the street.
Yeah, it's really a win-win because I think we certainly need more boots on the ground. We've been down on officers going back several years, and we're not going to be able to just catch ourselves up very, very quickly in 1 year because of the cost. But if we have civilian dispatchers, I think we have folks who are trained and professional in terms of answering the calls, and we get a huge volume, 30,000 plus.
Yes, we're up around 35,000 calls for service a year.
So that's 35,000 calls. Because we have less people, it's not as though there are less calls for service coming in.
Right.
But now we have an opportunity to have more police out on the street answering those calls, and hopefully some folks in-house who are trained. All of our dispatchers have now gone to receive their training, gone to dispatch school.
Yes, Dispatch Academy.
Dispatch Academy.
They've all successfully graduated.
Which is great. And we've got trained hands in staff who are civilians and can get more police officers out on the street, which will enable us to work on something like a traffic division. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts there?
Sure. There's a couple of initiatives. One, and I think probably the most important advantage that we've gotten from the civilian dispatchers is the creation of a traffic unit. Years ago, we had a several-person traffic unit. They did a great job, and through cuts and everything else, that had to be one of the things that suffered. We had an officer in charge, Lieutenant Bob Brzezinski, who does a tremendous job, could only devote 2 days a week to it, and Officer Mike Page was in. What we've been able to do, beginning January 1st, is to triple the size of the traffic division, going from 1 to 3. While it may not seem like much numbers-wise, the amount of work and the commitment is really going to send us very, very far ahead. We've also been able to, through some other personnel moves, have Bob Przewski take over as the full-time commander of the traffic division. We have a number of things that we can do. We have 2 plate readers. That's a great piece of technology.
Yeah, talk about that, these auto license plate readers.
Yes.
Right?
What happens is, and the residents may have seen on the back of the cruisers what look like 2 small boxes on the back.
Looks like Batman's car.
They do, and we've had some great success already with them. What happens is that they can actually read 1,500 plates per minute, and it'll tell us if a car's unregistered, uninsured, if they're wanted. Today we had an incident. We were looking for a certain vehicle that was possibly involved in an escape. We put it right into the plate reader and just started driving around. It's over 100 times faster than the human eye can see, and it stores the data. It tells us if there's any violations. It really is a big, big step ahead. They've been a great boost for us.
I mean, the department's really embraced technology in a positive way. When you think about, I know these auto license plate readers are roughly $30,000, anywhere from 20 to 30,000.
Yes, that's correct.
We've made that investment knowing that that's one-time capital investment that enables us to, with less folks available at times, obviously do the job and do it well. And we continue to do that in the police department.
Yes, we've been very fortunate, and there's no replacing people on the street and the human factor with technology, but technology is a great thing to help us, to supplement us, to do the job. And we've been very fortunate in Salem to get things like the plate reader and to avail ourselves of things like our fingerprint machine that really go above and beyond and do that extra beyond what the human factor can do.
So we've got the auto plate reader, we've got the fingerprint machine you mentioned. We also have the surveillance cameras. I think on the North Shore we've got to be a community that has a large number of surveillance cameras both along the water and in our downtown corridor, partly because of all the activity that takes place in the city, but another big help when we're talking about trying to make sure Salem is safe, and I think give residents the feeling certainly that we'll never be able to put a police officer in every corner, but we're going to embrace technology to aid us, as you've mentioned.
Yes, the ability that the officers inside now have to cover almost all of the downtown, all the way up to the MBTA train station, to the seaport. We're adding additional cameras for the Willows, and we think it's been a great deterrent as well. If we look at some of the statistics of some of the malicious damage incidents in and around the common area, they've been cut down to almost nothing with the advent of the cameras. They really have been a great addition to the crime-fighting tools that we have.
Perfect for our city when we host so many different events with large numbers to be able to zoom in. I mean, the caliber of these cameras is terrific too. And while we're not sitting there staring at them 24/7, if there was an incident, we can zoom in. If there's a call, we can focus in on those areas almost right away.
Yes, and we actually did that quite a bit this year, particularly at Halloween time, as you mentioned earlier. If we got a report of a crowd surge or traffic, we have the ability to call up that area. The resolution on the cameras is precise and clear. And we also have the ability to go back if we were to hear that something happened. We can check and search through the tapes. Police work is difficult enough without the technology. With it, we are so far ahead. I look back and people ask me during my career, what's the biggest change that I've seen? I'd say it has to be technology. The days that I'll never forget, one of our local businessmen, John Boris, several years ago brought a box up to our detective division and said, I just got this for you. It just came out. It was a fax machine. and we were just enthralled with this. I look and see where we are now. I feel like we're in the Jetsons TV show age. And the city's has been very diligent about making sure that we have our tools.
Well, so as much as we want these tools, we know we still want to see a police presence. And so we're doing the traffic division, which is great. Using civilians to help answer the phone allows us to have some enforcement out in the neighborhoods. But you've got some other sort of community policing initiatives that I think I'm excited to hear about. I think people want to see police presence, especially. It gives them a feeling of comfort and also to get to know their officers. And when there's a problem, hopefully it breaks down some barriers in communicating too. Yes,
that's correct. We've done some good things. During each officer's 8-hour tour, we're requiring that they park the cruiser for a half hour and walk their beat and switch it up. Just an example, over the weekend we had the historic Salem had the house tours, and what we had the officers do during the half-hour park and walk was concentrate in the Dearborn Street, North Street area. We got some great feedback. As many of the residents know, we have a community impact unit that really goes after the quality of life issues. They've built a tremendous liaison with LifeBridge. Where they've gone out to many of the neighborhood groups, and we're actually starting a new initiative that I'm going to be kicking off in January called the Street Enforcement Team. It's a sergeant and 2 patrol officers to go out and specifically target those types of crime that seem to be a chronic crime that falls somewhere between detectives and patrol.
That's great. I know having the police presence, certainly I've seen downtown, allows merchants to communicate as well when they see something going on. So it not only is the enforcement end, but it's the prevention end.
Yes, absolutely. And what we've done is we've had an officer in the square at lunchtime trying to hold the crowds back, particularly during October. But even now, until the weather gets bad, I actually took my turn in the square a couple of Fridays ago, and great feedback from the merchants, from the residents. And that's really what it's all about. We can't have a police officer on every corner. It's just not possible. But the more we have officers out there and we talk to people and get their cooperation, we're all that much better off.
That's great. I know it's not immune to the superiors. We've got superiors, even those that aren't in uniform, putting on the uniform and doing some of those beats as well.
Yes, one day a month, any officer of any rank, from myself down to detectives, one day a month, they have to put the uniform on and they have to work in a cruiser. It's a great thing for communication between the department. It's actually a force multiplier. It puts extra people out, and it's been very, very well received. I couldn't be more happy.
Terrific. Lots of new initiatives in the police department. Glad that you could share with us some of the most exciting things that are happening in what has been a very exciting day.
Yes.
And thanks for being here.
Thanks, ma'am.